everyone. Welcome to HERPath, the podcast for busy women looking for health, happiness, and purpose. My name is Elise. We're talking today about loss of motivation and holding yourself accountable. Today's podcast is going to be filled with stories and tips and tricks on how you can stay accountable to the things that you want to achieve, even when you don't feel like doing it, or it feels daunting, or just not motivated. So stay with us because we're going to give you lots of great things to think about going forward. So when I think about holding myself accountable, I think about all the things that I want to have happen in my life, and the work associated with it. My mind automatically goes to the work, the items, the tasks. I'm a project manager at heart. So, a little timeline will come out in my mind, or a little project plan will just magically appear in front of me. And sometimes that can cause me to just be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm daunted. This is too much. Perfect example for me are my blogs. So I do a blog post every week, and I do it on coaching, what my coaching clients are going through, what I've experienced, how I can help you all with ways to get past your mind and make things happen for you. And I love my blogs and I'm proud of my blogs and on the other side. But when I have to sit down and write that blog, oh, I can really go through the paces. So when I'm working on my blog and I don't want to do it, yeah, I do step up and walk away from it once in a while. But if I can have some quiet time with my brain and really plot out what I need to do in the easiest way, I find that really helps me. Like if I sit down and say, okay, it's 12 to 1 on Tuesday, and this is my time to work on a blog. I'm not inspired by what I need to do, and then I don't do it. But if I can take a walk, or I'm in the grocery store and a topic comes to my head, or an experience comes to the front of my mind that says, oh, I can write about that. Then I can sit down and I can write the whole thing in like an hour. It happens very quickly. So one of my ways of working through my mind, working through that procrastination, working through that, I'll do anything else but this, is to have that, allow myself to be inspired, allow myself to have a flexible timeline within reason. I need to put a blog out every week and use all the tools that we've been talking about. So through our podcast, we've been talking about tools like Monday Hour One, writing down all the things that you need to do for the week and prioritizing yourself first and making space for the things that we need to do. Remembering the why. Why am I writing a blog post every single week? It's for my clients. It's for my future clients. It's for my business. It's for sharing what I've learned with the world, right? When I write these blogs, I always feel really proud of myself at the end. I'm always kind of surprised that they came out as good as they did. I use the same format for every single blog, and I'm proud of myself. So I try to channel that pride on the other side, on the before side, right? Just do it, Elise. You're going to feel so proud of yourself once you've done it. And I also relish in the fact that I'm building my muscles around discipline. And I know we as coaches, we've spent a lot of time talking about how do you build that muscle as discipline? How do you push through when you don't want to? I think, last week we talked about how to move our bodies when we don't want to, when we feel like shit, right? Same thing. We're building that muscle of discipline that I think it was Beth who said 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and just do it, right? Even if we don't want to. Same thing can go here when we're trying to hold ourselves accountable. In my corporate world, I also was an expert in change management. So I like to pull some of the tools from change management to help me hold myself accountable. So I ask myself questions. Why am I doing it? Why am I doing it now? What happens if I don't do it? And probably the most important one, what's in it for me? It's an acronym, we call it WIFM. What's in it for me? What's the benefit to me for doing this? Right? So for my blog, it's helping my clients, it's helping my future clients, it's helping my business, it's helping um, let people know who I am and how I think about the world. So those are the tools that I use when when I when I don't hold myself accountable or I don't want to hold myself accountable. And it doesn't work all the time. Sometimes I don't, and then I have to get back on that horse and start all over again. But those have been really good tools for me. So I'd love to hear from my coach friends here what tools you have used to hold yourself accountable. And it doesn't have to be your business. It can be in your personal life. It can be in your current work life. It can be any space in your life. Gabby, you want to go first?
Sure. So the biggest thing I was thinking about was in my job as a primary care doctor, there is a lot of documentation, a lot of kind of like administrative stuff that needs to get taken care of. I love the one-on-one interaction with my patients, and I wish that's all it was. I wish I could go into the patient room, have the visit, go into the next patient room, and done. That's the day. But that's not how it is in primary care. We get phone calls, we have to review lab results, we have to review imaging, we have to document what actually happened during the visit. We have to review, any health maintenance items that may be out of or do, like vaccines, colon cancer screenings, mammograms. So there's this whole variety, and all of that has to be documented. So I did find myself at one point feeling very overwhelmed and burnt out by all of those things that would kind of get left as I was seeing my patients back to back to back to back to back. And then all of that documentation, all of that administrative stuff would pile up day after day after day after day. And I was finding myself doing a lot of that at home on the weekends, or I'd have to get to work early to just feel like I am trying to, stay on top and not feel like I'm drowning. And it got pretty exhausting for me. So I had to make a plan for how to organize my time because I didn't like feeling that weight of, oh, I have so much to do and it's just impossible to get it done. And it just took structuring my tasks in a way that was realistic and being okay with not being 100% perfect. So something that I would just freak out about was having my patients waiting in their room. If their visit is at 10, I want them to be in the room by 10, and I want to be able to be in the room with them, at 10 o'clock. But people show up late. It takes me longer with some patients to get in to go through the visit before I can get to the next patient. My documentation will just kind of keep piling up if I just go straight back to back from each room. So I had to let go of my idea of what it meant to have a perfect day. And between each patient, I had to give myself time to be able to do my documentation, to answer a couple of messages, to go through, some of the labs, so that as the day went on, I could get some of that administrative stuff done as the day went on between client visits. And my priority was always to finish the documentation of my charting by the end of the day, because that was really the hardest, the most robust task that would get undone. And we get penalized. Physicians, we get penalized depending on where you work. But I work in the corporate world. We get penalized for not having, our charts done on time. And if you have a certain number of charts that are outstanding, your hospital privileges get suspended. You get monetary penalties, and it just feels horrible. And I didn't like feeling that way. So knowing that I didn't like feeling that way, I just had to make some changes in my day-to-day routine and kind of structure my day in a way that wasn't what I was doing before, and be okay with, my patient's just going to have to wait a little bit sometimes, but that is just the cost of having to juggle so many things at once. I'm more at peace, and my patients are still well taken care of, and they're still satisfied with their care. So it worked out for me much better that way. And I still leave on time from work.
That's great. And I love how you challenged your thoughts about how it should be. You challenged your own protocol about how you should see your patients and how much they should wait. I love can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, did you have a hard time spacing things out so you could do a little charting in between, or how did you manage your mind while you were doing that?
So in my mind, it takes so long to do it takes so long to do all these things. It just takes forever to finish up a note. And so I had to put processes in place that made my notes more efficient. So learning how to use templates, learning how to put the minimum information in there that was needed for me to have a decent note that gave me all the information I needed to be able to follow and document, my patient's issues. Um, I used to think it had to be a dissertation, like every single detail, every single like dictated note had to be. And so I had to be okay with, and sometimes, spell checking, make sure there weren't any, grammatical or spelling mistakes on there. I had to go ahead and break up with that idea that the documentation had to be so thorough, so long, perfect in every way, um, in order for me to be able to
Yeah,
get through it. Um, and yes, sometimes there are typos on there, and just be okay with it and know that it's not a reflection of me as a physician or my intelligence or my the quality of care that I'm providing. Um, it's me trying to get things done efficiently so that me and my patients can get through the day.
I love that. Breaking up with your ideas. I love that
Mhm.
concept. Beth, how about you? What experiences do you have in this area?
One theme that has driven me to be motivated to do things when I don't want to do them is remembering this phrase: discipline turns into delight. And when you think about that, like anytime that you have done something on a consistent basis that you don't want to do, but you keep doing it, eventually it will turn into delight. So, for an example, for me, I will use my health as an example. Knowing that I had some issues with my digestion, and knowing that I needed to avoid certain foods that I didn't want to avoid. I wanted to eat dairy. I wanted to eat gluten. I wanted to eat processed foods that I know that my gut probably didn't need at the time. However, the discipline of avoiding dairy, avoiding gluten, the discipline of adding new things that my body needed to heal and repair and um, yes, heal and repair, like bone broth and fresh vegetables, things like that, um, turned into delight by first it felt better, like I physically felt better. And then also the delight of that it was my new baseline. Like it's not a problem to avoid certain things. I don't even want dairy. I don't want gluten anymore. And another example also would be at one point my exercise routine. I was very struggling to make that a consistency in my life. And at one point, it just switched. Like I kept, like you had made mention, at least just I kept doing the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 and get up and go and do it. And then at some point, my brain rewired itself where that was my new normal. Like I was just somebody that worked out every day. I was somebody that liked to work out hard every day and sweat and breathe heavy and liked the feeling of fatigued muscles and sore muscles the next day. And So just having that phrase in my mind when I don't want to do something, the discipline turns into delight. Just it helps me move forward with whatever it is I don't want to do.
Discipline turns into delight. I'm gonna have to put that on the side of my computer. Nancy, how about you?
That's awesome. I love that too. I've just really been thinking on that. Discipline is like this for me. Accountability. Let me see. One of the things that I've done in the last, not quite year, but maybe the last 10 months is I have a Facebook group for women in perimenopause and menopause. And, I really did not want to do that. It's fascinating. I didn't want to do it at all, but I did it. It's kind of like I kind of made myself do it. And now I post nearly every day in that group, which is amazing. I never thought I would. I thought, oh my gosh, what can I come up with? But it's funny when you're in the habit, ideas just come. But the discipline thing is funny because I'm really disciplined about that. But now I have to admit my house is an absolute disaster. It's funny. I look around and there's just stuff everywhere. So I really need to bring a little discipline into my own housekeeping. Just kind of funny.
Did
Because
you swap? Like, was it a swap? Like you funneled
I'm
all of your discipline into your Facebook page?
now that we're talking about it, I'm really thinking like, what in the heck happened? Yeah, I guess it's just not a priority for me in this moment.
Hmm.
Just funny because I used to have a super organized house, and I look around and I'm like, things are everywhere. But I'm very compassionate to myself. Tomorrow's my day to really unclutter and unfuck my house.
Nice. Unfuck my house. I love that.
Yeah, those are Sundays for me too. Sundays are the days where right now my house is a mess too. I went to bed last night and there's just stuff everywhere. The toddler, she's not a toddler anymore, but the little one, she likes to, she always wants to eat before going to bed. And Marisol was at prom, so we were kind of waiting up for her. And I was just kind of tired by then and said, you know what? We'll just clean it tomorrow.
But anyway, I think what has really helped me is knowing that I think if what I post helps even one person, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
So just one little post can really make someone's day or just bring some insight and awareness to someone that can really help them. So that's what motivates me.
That's similar to my blog. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're all coaches. And I'd like to ask about your clients or people that you're interacting with and how you do this kind of work with them. So this is a big part of my niche in the work that I do with busy career women, is that accountability piece. We're as busy women, I find that we're running in a million miles, and there's so many different things that we are expected and needed. And we often lose sight of ourselves. We often lose sight of our well-being or our balance or our flow. I use the word flow, work-life flow. But a lot of what I do in my business is helping women figure out what are those things that matter most to them. And then how do we make space for that? And how do we create the discipline for that? Because let's say, I have a client and she's a busy career woman and she really wants to be a painter. Like she wants to become an artist, right? Maybe in her spare time, but she has a very busy career and she has kids and family and obligations and she's getting a big promotion. And how do we carve out time? How does she carve out the time for that, make that a priority, and have the discipline to do that? So I do a lot of thought work around that. And I'm curious if you all in your businesses have had those same conversations and how you coach your clients.
So one of the things that I mentioned to people who discuss, similar feelings of not having the time or not having the energy or not having the motivation to do something that in their mind they want to do, but There's just so much other stuff going on. And it's something that you had mentioned before is your reason why. Why is this important for you? And it has to be compelling enough where you are willing to do something, anything, to accomplish that. You know, whether it is a side gig or just exercise or sleep, or you know, or something else, is that your reason for wanting that has got to be compelling enough that you are willing to find a way to make it work for you. And sometimes we do have to exchange it for something else. Sometimes it's about kind of reorganizing our time and how we do things. And maybe there really is time there, but we're not using our time, you know, as efficiently as we possibly could. Or maybe the expectations of how the thing should be done are very, very high. And something that we think is going to consume so much time, for example, exercise, fitting that in somehow. Maybe it really doesn't take that long. Maybe it doesn't take a whole hour, 5 days a week. Maybe it's 10 minutes, 3 days a week. You know, for me, I'm, you know, putting together a weight loss class, and I don't work on it every single day. You know, it's because I do have a full-time job and children and, you know, all the things just like everyone else, just like you all. And so it's finding the time to be able to work on it little by little. You know, I did have an expectation that I should gung ho and just, you know, power through it. And I'm smart enough, I should be able to do everything. But realistically, my list of priorities, when I really did, you know, line them out, that was still important for me. But the amount of time that I thought I should dedicate to it, I actually, you know, decreased it to a point where I was satisfied with it, where I was still getting it done, but it just didn't feel so overwhelming and I wasn't pressuring myself, where I felt awful about it and then didn't end up doing anything.
Great insights. Nancy, Beth, how about you guys?
Well, for me, you know, I work with people in their health and their mindset, doing hypnotherapy, and I also do biofeedback and I read lab work for people. So for me, it's really explaining to people what's going on with their body, kind of educating them, and also explaining having them understand the consequences of not making the health changes. Like what could happen if they're, you know, continually eating sugar and, you know, not watching, you know, their weight. What could happen? Like fast forward 1 year from now, 5 years from now, where do you think you're going to be? And I think that can be like a really rude awakening for people, but some people just really need that kind of, you know, kind of like that slap in the face. Like what's going to happen if you don't change? It'd be really kind of a rude awakening for people, but you know, said with love, it can be really helpful in motivating people and finding what really motivates them. Do we need to talk about like, okay, what about, you know, are you going to be able to do things with your grandchildren? You know, what do you want to do? How do you want your life to be? And paint that picture with them. Just helping them make the small changes, not huge ones, but just little things that they can self-correct along the way, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, a lot of my clients are so desperate to feel better. They are so sick and tired of feeling so sick and tired that they are willing to do whatever it takes to feel better. And I think reaching that threshold of like the point of desperation, like when you're willing to try anything to feel better, is very motivating. So, but the other piece that I find that all of us have is we are more inclined to do something for somebody else than we are for ourselves. And so simply having invested in a coach and having a personal coach to be accountable to me versus them, follow through is much easier for them to do that. through that process, of course, teaching them how to learn to be accountable to themselves takes more effort, more work, and more energy. But in the long run, that is the goal. So you aren't dependent on someone like me to telling you what to do and then you following through and doing it, which is great. And you do get faster results that way. That's why we hire coaches, is to be able to get where we want to be much faster. We can get there by ourselves, but we do it much faster when we have a coach and we're accountable to somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so important. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the work that I do with my coach around, all the things that I don't want to do and why it's so important. And sometimes it's just that fresh perspective that gives you one little tip, one little trick. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about changing your location to write your blog? Have you thought about going to a coffee shop to write your blog? Have you thought about going to a park? Like, it could be something so simple, but we're stuck in our mind games, right? Around, I don't want to do it, but I have to do it, but I don't want to do it. And it's just sometimes a fresh perspective that makes such a difference. Yeah, that's really great. All right, ladies. Well, I hope that this has inspired our listeners to think differently about how to remotivate and how to make space when you don't want to do and don't want to hold yourself accountable. I think we've covered a lot of different grounds here, and I'm excited to incorporate some of the different tools that you all have given us. So hope everyone has a great week, and we will see you next week.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.